Yes.
It sounds like it's a purely altruistic organization.
Yeah.
How did you get involved?
I went to school in California. I went to like a physical theater school where I studied clown.
Right. Okay.
And there was a U.S. clown who had been doing expeditions to Haiti, and he did a presentation, and I was just like, wow, I have got to do that. So I just started writing to them and being like, when do I get on? How do I get on? Can I come and be clown? And my first expedition was in 2006, and I was gone for 3 months to South Africa.
3 months?
Yeah.
Incredible.
Yeah, and it was just like immersed in it, and we clowned in the clinics too, and all over KwaZulu-Natal. It was really, really eye-opening.
I imagine so.
Yeah.
Corporate juggernauts. A lot of money's donated across the board from large corporations. Sometimes for maybe more, corporate gain than actual philanthropy. Do we think it's an issue that these huge corporate donations are receiving such large tax breaks and benefits? Is that a problem? Do we care?
I personally don't care. Yeah, to me, people have their own intentions and own ideas of why they donate. To me, I'm more concerned of what I would be able to do and what that money would be able to do, as opposed to necessarily their direct motivations for it. The same way we have small corporate partners right now, and they get some benefit past the altruistic benefit as well, whether we help promote them, whether we'll put on events with them, that kind of thing. And I don't have a problem with that, because as much as I'm immersed in the charitable and not-for-profit world, the for-profit world is there and serves a purpose as well. So personally, I'm okay with that.
Is it frustrating that maybe some of those big lump sums from corporations aren't being thrown around to grassroots organizations like Clowns Without Borders? Does that frustrate the organization a little bit at times?
Yes.
Yeah, that's an honest answer. I can
Yes.
see where that would be.
I find it frustrating. I find it frustrating when when I see it going for stuff that I just don't understand. But I mean, what can you do? There are the people that do give funds, and like there's a South African car company that's, we have their logo all over, but they're getting the clowns where they need to go. So good on them.
Yeah.
What would you do? I mean, what would change? I mean, had you had that opportunity to receive such a large funding from corporate Canada, I mean, what would you do with it? What would Cleos do with something like that? Let's say, maybe a few $1 million.
We have looked, and even the reason why Cleos in Canada is known as Cleos Microfinance Group is the vision of Cleos has always been to operate these satellite offices in Cleos, Uganda. Within my vision of it is the first of many. So we've seen a lot of need in other areas. We happen to be working in northern Uganda, and it's honestly fairly random that we ended up there. But to me, if we're working to alleviate poverty, it doesn't really matter where we start. So I've seen, and I've been approached by people in different countries or even different regions within Uganda about starting up similar programs. And if we had more seed capital, it would honestly lead to more of the same.
Clearly, yeah. Chances are. Folks, we're going to take a quick break. Stay with us. We'll be right back after this.
I'm really in support of searching out organizations that have a niche for what they're providing in terms of aid, whether it's literacy or clean drinking water, because these are often people that have made their organization their life's work, their life's passion. And to me, finding out an organization like that is the next best thing to being there and giving a helping hand. So if you can align with those people, you're building a relationship with a smaller organization, potentially reaching a smaller amount of people, but with a greater intensity and with greater passion. And I think no matter what, if you're helping people out, you're going to feel that in return.
Okay, bear with me. This will be a little long-winded, but popular economist William Easterly has noted the West has spent $2.3 trillion on foreign aid over the last 5 decades and still has not managed to get 12-cent medicines to children to prevent half of all malaria deaths. Staggering. If that's the case, then, are people giving for their own gratification rather than to actually help people? It's a deep question, I know, but it makes you wonder.
It does, and I don't know if people honestly even think that far through. And it's like the first person was saying about doing your research it's perfectly good to give to an organization that says they're getting rid of malaria.
That was Adam, by the way, Adam Henry.
Adam Henry, yes. And people are all for the cause, and that's great, but without doing research in how the organization works and what their actual outputs are, maybe that's not money that's spent in the best way possible.
Are people looking for self-gratification? Is that it? Do you agree?
Westerners?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
I think a lot of it is guilt. We have a really cushy life. We don't, we're not over there, and we don't want to give up all our great trinkets and things and stuff. And
guilt's a dangerous thing, though.
Yeah.
Guilt kind of causes a knee-jerk reaction. Well, if my money's in the pool, now I can turn my attention elsewhere.
Yeah, I've done
there's
my
a danger
part.
there.
Yeah.
That's what I mean. There's a danger there, of course.
For sure.
What factors? I mean, you've been, like you said, you spent 3 months and you've been over multiple times in South Africa and the region. So what are the factors that are stopping money, food, and medicine from actually reaching those people that are most in need?
It's a tough one for me to speak on because I'm a clown. I don't know why it's not getting to them. I have no idea. I think for them, a lot of it is not being able to afford like the name brand stuff or whatever, and why generic stuff is not.
Clearly, government has a lot to do with it.
Yeah,
I would think. I mean, a lot of these, for example, warlords. You hear stories of, well, not stories. These are documented events of warlords hoarding food, for example. Can you comment on what you've sort of uncovered, I suppose, in your research?
I think there's a couple factors into it. I mean, I think touching on what you were saying, there is something to do, especially with medicines, to do with patents and just when those medicines can be made and when they can become those generic medicines that'll come out that are chemically the same, that are available for cheaper. Yeah. And honestly, part of it is culturally as well. Like where I am in Uganda, lots of people refuse to sleep under mosquito nets, even though they have them, and they get malaria once a year or so.
They refuse to sleep, okay.
And they have the nets, they just don't use them, and they're, it's just not a big thing. They get malaria, they go to the hospital, and, hopefully nothing serious happens. Right. But I think that's part of it too.
Yeah, and in South Africa, like, it's such a huge expense, right, to go see the doctor, and even if you can get to a clinic, you might have to wait all day. So, especially if you're in the townships and villages. So it's just that it's not accessible.
Is it a safe environment to be working in?
I've always been lucky, I think, because I travel with South African clowns. Like, it's sometimes it's like usually I'm one of the only Western volunteers, and then there's the clowns that I'm with are from townships and villages, and there are Zulu-speaking clowns, and I'm learning a ton the whole time. But they've got my back, and like a lot of the times I'll be like, why can't I leave the door unlocked? And they're like, oh, hijackers. So I'm learning all the time, right? Yeah, so, but I have buddies on my back, so yeah. But it's not very safe. So.
No, I imagine it might even dissuade people.
Yeah. From being a part of that. Yeah, yeah.
Is there an effort made to maybe calm some of those fears and worries amongst potential volunteers?
I think so. I think the more we get out there, the more we come back, and like people like me can say, actually, it's pretty awesome, and the communities are wonderful, and the kids are fantastic, right? There's a reason I keep going back, and that's a big part of it. Is the communities are so wonderful and kind and generous, and it's a wonderful place to volunteer.
It sounds like that's what you're trying to build with Cleos, is these wonderful communities that these people haven't had the opportunity to live in.
Yeah, to a degree. I mean, there's a lot that's already wonderful about the community too. Where we're working is kind of a post-conflict region, where I think most famously is kind of where Joseph Coyne, the Coyne 2012, was operating in northern Uganda. So it's post-conflict and it's quite safe right now, but you can see the remnants of that conflict, of how people were displaced and don't really have that tie to the land. So that is part of the goal of Cleos for sure. Yeah. Yeah.
You touched on Coney real briefly there. So did that whole movement, I guess you'd call it a flash, what would you call it, a flash aid movement? Is that fair? Because I haven't really seen one since. I mean, I've got social media, Facebook, Twitter, whatnot. Of course, it was all over my social media at the time. And then there was a bit of the fallout. did his actions in the long run, the grand scheme of things, did they hurt or hamper?
Are you talking about Joseph Coyne, or are you
Pardon me,
talking
I'm talking
about
about
the
the,
filmmaker?